The Mooch is back in the nerd zone. We're going to talk about Yang's chances in New York. We'll have to talk about Donald J. Trump, the future of the GOP, and what the Mooch is up to himself. But before that, we're going to get warmed up with some previous guests. Hello, nerds.
All right.
Anthony, I got to get another hello, nerds from
you. Hello, nerds. Well, let me tell you something. You know, the nerds run the world. I mean, I gotta be very nice.
Seriously,
I don't want them hacking my accounts or anything like that. I gotta be very nice to all.
It's definitely like a
but for all you nerds out there, you know, I might be a nerd.
Oh, I think you are.
Just because I have this Italian exoskeleton, how do you know I'm not like a Talmudic scholar underneath all of this?
Seriously, dude, I think from your previous interviews, you're like a nerd in Z Cavaricci's. You know, you got a little bit of style, but underneath is a little bit of a bookish nerd.
We're all, you know, running different types of operating systems. Let's be honest, right? But it's always good to be on with you, Tom. Thanks for having me back. The world is changing. I think it's changing a little bit for the better, frankly. I'm happy about where we are. Last time I talked, I think it was before the election.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I predicted, as I think you did as well, a Donald Trump schmeisting. And of course, he's such a big baby. He had to lie about it and tell people that he there was a fraudulent election. I mean, it's just an absolute joke that anybody would even take that seriously. But here we are now, and I was watching today the president with Vladimir Putin. I was thinking, thank God we've got an adult sitting there in that room representing the interests of the United States. So I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, he's probably not grabbing the notes from the translator and trying to shred it like before he gets on the Air Force One.
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, he probably wasn't talking about a property deal or how he's going to make money together after the thing was over and all that crazy stuff that the other guy, you know.
I was
where was Melania Trump yesterday at the 75th birthday of the Orange Maniac?
Yeah. Yeah, she was not to be seen. That was a pretty sad video. He looked, and then when he was speaking at the My Pillow conference, he didn't seem all there.
Yeah.
Like the irony is that during the campaign, they were saying, "Oh, you know, Joe Biden's barely can stand up," but Donald himself, I don't know, man, he's not looking so sharp.
That's what people do. They project. You know how it works.
Yeah. So I was expecting him to do something crazy. Well, in the old days, crazy, like not give a concession speech. But I was surprised at how tenacious he was trying to actually like overturn the election. Were you surprised that he kept, and he's still to this day, like he keeps trying to make that case?
Not surprised. I was surprised at the willingness of the GOP to allow him to do that. I was surprised that he wasn't rebuked by anybody, stunned by the behavior of Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, stunned by them, not stunned or surprised by anything anymore post January 6th. Once they said, hey, listen, we're so afraid of Donald Trump, we'll just let him do whatever he wants. And then I'll tell you something scarier, Tom. Some of these people want to be Donald Trump. Some of these people see themselves as his successor, and it's a combination of white, ethnocentric Christian nationalism and bizarre autocratic tendency behavior. So I don't know. I think these people have decided, if I cannot win the election based on my ideas in a relatively fair and free democracy, let me subvert the rules so I can try to control the card game.
Yeah,
but on the same side, okay, because I'm a pretty normal person, pragmatic. I'm not in love with critical race theory. Love to have the conversation with anybody. I'm not in love with it. My ancestors got here well after the abolition of slavery. There was nobody in my family that was involved with anything related to slavery. If people want to make the case that I'm supposedly white and so therefore I got some kind of benefit from being white, okay, but what are we going to do? We're going to rip up the whole society? Let's try to make the society fairer from here. I don't understand why we have to go back. I don't know how that's going to help anybody, So I interviewed General Honore today, the former general lieutenant general that was helping us with the Katrina. He's now investigating the January 16th insurrection at the behest of Speaker Pelosi. I think he got the point that I was making. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
The Asian community has been victims of hate crime. The Japanese Americans were interned during the war. The Sacco and Vanzetti were innocent, but they ended up being persecuted as Italian Americans. We can go through almost every ethnic group of people, and there's a ton of stuff there. It all pales in comparison to what happened to African Americans. I got that. But I'm just wondering when we stop the grievances and we reknit the society. And, you'll get somebody listening to this, they'll be upset with me and they'll say, well, you've lived with white privilege, and so therefore you don't understand the plight that we've had. And I would push back on that and say, I think I do understand the plight. Let's make it fairer from here.
What would you do to make it? What do you think we can do to make it fair?
Well, we've had that conversation. I mean, I think Andrew Yang has a interesting idea, right? We're talking about, you and I have had this conversation, a platform of services and benefits that allow for equal opportunity, but not equal outcomes. I just want to get kids a chance at the starting block. I got a chance at the starting block. My dad was a blue collar worker, but he had a high middle class wage. My mother was a housewife. She stayed home with us. I did my homework. I had decent grades. They gave me an opportunity to get to the starting block. I wasn't in the same location as a billionaire's son or somebody that was more well connected into the establishment. So what? I'm at the starting block. I got a chance to run an aspirational race. What I don't like happening here is the educational system is so uneven that you tell me the zip code, I can tell you if the kid has a chance. I mentored a kid. I got him when he was 13. He couldn't read or write. 13. He's in the 7th grade in the New York City public school system. We had to hire a tutor and try to teach him 5.5 years of education that either he wasn't paying attention to or they were just babysitting him and passing him.
Yeah. The thing about basic income as this economic floor from which then people can compete seems like it's an idea that has no home. Many self-described progressives in the Democratic Party feel like it is an attack on the current social kind of programs. And then in the Republican Party, it's kind of labeled a handout.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because it seems like it addresses a lot of concerns that both sides have around bloated government or not enough help for people who need it.
But that's our cynical society right now, because the special interests on the left would say, I don't want to break down all of these special interests and all these programs and the middle class layer. So if I have a social program, I've now hired all these government workers to administer the social program. If I give the money directly to the people, I don't need the government workers to administer their social program. It's a pure delivery system. It's way more efficient. It's better for the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. But now you have all the layers and layers of bureaucracy that go away, and those people vote for progressives. I don't want those people losing their jobs and going with a universal basic income. I need those people voting for me. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything, unfortunately, is centered around power preservation, personal power, the selfish commitment to staying in power. It's not about, okay, what are we going to do to serve these people? What's the right platform, the right ideas? We're a rich enough society now where we should be able to take care of people's health care. We should be able to figure out a way to get them educated, some reasonable amount of education where they can read and write and do arithmetic. We should be able to have a job training program. We should be able to marry that to some decent infrastructure so that we can rebuild our bridges, roads, and tunnels. We should be able to do that. We're not incapable of that. If you've got $197 billion, God bless. I think it's amazing. I'm not for equal outcomes. Somebody like Jeff Bezos has created that kind of a company, and that kind of a company has added to people's lives. People could say that some of it has been bad. It's eroded some of the main streets and the small businesses. Other people will say that it's helped to build small businesses. But it's part of the free market system. It's there. But I'm just wondering if we need to be at those levels. I mean, what are we doing with the $197 billion? I don't know. How many cars, how much food, how much can you eat? Yeah, how many, we're going to have a second dinner every night? What are we going to do with the money? But if you were able to figure out a way to incentivize a person like Jeff Bezos to return that money to the society and create a package of services so that we were to tighten the society up from an economic strata perspective, it would be better for the society. Do you want to live in a barbed wire security compound in your McMansion while your fellow neighbors are suffering? I have absolutely no interest in that. Sure, I want to have a nice house. I feel I deserve it. I've paid my taxes. I've earned it. I've created jobs. I've helped those people pay their taxes. So yeah, I would like to have a nice house. I feel like I've earned that. But I don't know. Can't we help the people around us a little bit so that they can do well? Or do we want to be having them pick out of garbage cans and shoot themselves with heroin needles while we're sitting in our big houses? I don't fully understand it, but then we have a crisis of leadership. So let's demonize the rich. There's no need to do that. Let's just explain to the rich what we think would be best for the society. And let's figure out a way to incentivize them to help get the society on track.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I kind of feel for those who have done well, it's actually in their long-term interests for a stable, sustainable society. And if they have an increasingly large portion of society that feels like it has nothing to lose, I don't know how long that barbed wire is going to hold up. You know?
It never does, Tom. Go through 5,000 years of history. Social upheaval comes from class indifference.
Mm-hmm.
Social cohesion comes from the noblesse oblige, comes from the idea that the noble people are obligated to give back. You know, I don't know if you read Zach Carabel's book, Inside Money, about the Brown Brothers Harriman. And of course, that was where Prescott Bush got his start. The Harriman Railroad teamed up with the Brown Brothers, who were the investment bankers. Prescott Bush was an investment banker there. It was the bluest of blue chip places. It was located on Wall Street. They came in from Greenwich, these high hoity-toity wasps. They were in the cocktail car, and they were playing golf. It was the epitome of white privilege, and it was an epitome of exclusion of minorities and women from these sorts of jobs. So I'm not painting a pitch-perfect picture. A lot was wrong with it. However, there was a sense of obligation. There was a sense for, okay, we better help to engineer a society where there's peace and prosperity. We better help to engineer a society where the Scaramuccis out on Long Island, when the parents are not educated, can live in the middle class or roughly in the middle class. You know, I would say we're middle class with a tight budget. But, you know, why are we doing this now? I don't get it. But, you know, we're here, and I don't see it getting better. And then up against that, you do have guys like Trump playing into that. Because if you have anxiety, if you've gone from a generation of aspirational Americans to a current generation of desperational Americans, you're going to be attracted to the Josh Hawleys and Donald Trumps and Ted Cruz's. You are. Are they the right solution for the future? I don't believe that they are. I think if anything, they're just giving you more drivel and more nonsense so they can try to win a power base and be in power, you know?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out, because right now, if you look at Congress, it seems to be so polarized to the like soak the rich or, let them eat cake. And those are your two options. And it's interesting also that I thought with Trump exiting stage, right, that things would get a little bit more back to normal, but they're like with the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Lorena Boberts and the Matt Getzes, like Trumpism seems to be alive and well, despite
it.
the
It
fact
plays.
that,
It plays well for them. It's popular with a group of people. Also, you have to remember Trump's insanity, people found interesting. It was like a car crash. He was running with his mouth a verbal car crash every day. And so people were rubbernecking him. They were slowing down to look at his Twitter feed. They were slowing down to catch him on one of the news feeds saying nonsensical drivel. They're not doing that with Joe Biden because he's a fairly well-tempered guy. I mean, he lost his cool a little bit today with Caitlin Collins, but he's a fairly well-tempered guy. And he's programmatically doing the right thing. I mean, tell me the most outrageous, outlandish tweet that Joe Biden has said since he was inaugurated president of the United States. And Trump was sending him one every 2 hours.
Yeah.
One every 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it's incendiary, it's stupid, it's not logical, but we're here now. And here's the thing I would say to you, and it's a spirit of optimism, a moment of optimism for me. I think that Trump's departure is going to force him into irrelevance. He's doing some kind of rally. I think very small group of people are going to show up at it. I think that age, Father Time, has a tendency to hit everybody. And I think that come 2024, even though he looks like the favorite right now, he may not be. I could tell you in early 2007, going into 2008, Hillary Clinton was the favorite. She was going to win the nomination and go on to win the presidency in 2008.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember the sentiment, but I don't remember that actually happening.
Oh yeah, but the sentiment was that it was a done deal. Yeah. Then that guy from Illinois came out of nowhere, right? So
no, exactly.
So what do you think about the future of the Republican Party? So if Trump fades, it's funny, like they hate people like Mitt Romney. It's amazing. They freaking hate him. And a lot of, I think, people who were Republicans have no longer identify as such. So it's this smaller, more kind of hardcore, orangey kind of group. Who's gonna get the mantle? Yeah. Who's gonna get the baton?
Well, I think that you've got a group of people that have formed a center-right alliance, and they're trying to pull or peel away. I'm part of it, frankly. They're trying to peel away what I would characterize as normal Republicans. See, I actually think the rhinos, Republicans in name only, are the Trumpers. I don't think they're Republicans. They're like Tinos. They're like Trump in name only. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do follow you, but they've taken over. I feel like the people who were, let's call it 1980s, 1990s Republicans, they are not welcome in today's Republican Party. They will not be able to win a primary, I would imagine, in today's environment, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where they go. Because they're not going to be able to get a Democratic nomination either.
Not going to win. There'd have to be some kind of sea change event, a criminal indictment of Trump and several other people, some type of implication related to the insurrection. There would have to be a sea change event, exposure that Donald Trump was actually working alongside of the Russians as a result of compromise that they had on him. There would have to be some kind of jarring thing that broke the snow globe that these people are encased in. And if that happened, maybe the fever would break. But, you have to remember what this is. This is a combination of things. This is a hagiography about the past. And so this is, let me go back to the era of 1955. Well, 1955 was pretty shitty for minorities, Black people, Asians, Italian Americans. You know, you're not getting into my club or my restaurant. But, you know, you have the Happy Days visage of Richie Cunningham and Arthur Fonzarelli at Arnold's diner, right, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And so people have this sort of hagiography related to that. And what I would tell you is crazy to me, absolutely crazy, is why? Well, you know what? White people were running things. And now there are brown, Black, and Asian people whose demographics are rising, and they have a chance now to be in the power structure. I don't like that. Not me, of course, but that's the narrative. I don't like that. And so let's figure out a way to cavort the system, create anger, subvert the system. And you've got a very hardcore 20% of these people that are American nativists. They are nationalists, you know, white supremacists, some of them. And it's a bigger group than we would like to pretend that it is. And so ultimately, political leadership like Donald Trump is bubbling up from that.
Yeah.
You know, remember, he is a apotheosis of something that's going on in the system. If there wasn't something malignant going on in the system, he could not rise with his rhetoric.
Yeah, Andrew Yang used to say that Trump's a symptom of a problem. He didn't cause it.
Yeah, he's just he's some of the bubbles overflowing from that boiling cauldron.
Yeah.
So speaking of Andrew Yang, what do you think's going to happen there, Tom?
Oh my God, dude!
Well, you know I'm a donor. I don't know if you saw Open Secrets posted my donation.
I appreciate you supporting him. I am too. Probably not at your level, but yeah, I'll be honest with you. When Biden won, I was like, oh man, that would be great if we got a pretty good cabinet position for Yang in there. That no one knows if anything offer was extended, but obviously he's now running for mayor. And when that decision came about, I was like, oh man, like I don't know if he's going to be able to pull that off and sustain 2 losses basically. But then after the campaign started, in the early polls, he had a really strong lead, which has now been diminished, and he's in the top tier, but you know, he's trailing Adams at least from the polls I saw last week. And I'm a little worried, to be honest with you. And how
does it work though? When you go through this primary, there's some kind of like tiering,
ranked choice voting. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that work?
So in order to win, you got to get 50%. Nobody has over 50 right away. So what happens is then the weaker candidates, it's like an instant runoff based on the ranking. So then the lowest performing person, their votes will get reallocated to whoever their people put ranked as number 2. And it just keeps happening. And when you play out those scenarios, Yang usually makes it into the top 3.
Okay.
The last poll from last week, it ended up with Adams, Garcia, and Yang.
Okay.
No, it was Adams, Wiley, and Yang, because after the AOC endorsement, Wiley kind of picked up. And I think there's like this kind of consolidation of the most progressive voters behind Wiley, because Morales was the favored one for the progressives, but then she's had all these issues with her campaign staff. So it becomes a Adams, Wiley, Yang, and then Yang's voters get reallocated to more of them go to Adams, and Adams wins. In that one poll from Emerson last week, I haven't seen the latest ones yet, but
we don't have to go to election day. He has to run. He's running.
I mean, in theory, a Republican, he'll have to. The winner of the primary on June 22nd will have to defeat the Republican nominee. But I think most people believe that the winner of the Democratic primary should win the whole thing. because on the Republican side, you've got the Guardian Angels guy, right? Silva or something.
Yeah, Curtis Lee. Is he going to get the nomination?
I think he might be leading in the polls, but I haven't been tracking the Republican primary too much. I will say this, though. I have been doing some phone banking and been calling folks in like Staten Island and Queens and stuff. Yeah. And, you get, it's interesting. You get to hear most people hang up on you, but then some people will share how they feel. And you're definitely hearing a lot of people concerned about crime.
Yeah.
And somehow they believe that Yang is in favor of defunding the police, which he is not.
Right.
But he's getting kind of, they're like, well, Eric Adams used to be a cop, so the rest are trying to defund the police. Right. And then the second thing I will say is we often talk about tension between whites and non-whites. But I think that is a mass oversimplification, because some of the folks I called were definitely not white, but uncomfortable with an Asian candidate.
Right.
And, we don't talk about that a lot in the Democratic Party, but that's there. And so,
there's the incidence of Asian hate crime is up, right, Tom?
Yeah, they are. And they're not always performed by white assailants. That's right. It's not. Right. It's quite a diverse group that's attacking the Asians.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. I don't like it at all. I mean,
no. It's.
But I think we're in this volatile society. It needs transformative leadership. It needs calming, transformative leadership. And in the meantime, we have so many good things that are about to happen. We're out of the pandemic. There's pent-up consumerism. There's amazing amounts of technological innovation from the nerds for humanity. All of you nerdy people out there are inventing things that are changing the society for the better. The healthcare system is going to be made more efficient. There'll be better customized immuno and chemo therapies to help people get through their illnesses and extend their lives. It's amazing stuff that's going on.
There's a lot of good.
The programming, you can't. I think we're in the golden age of streaming. My God, the level of programs, the animation for the children. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, when my kids watch like the original Lion King, they're like, "What is this crap? Like, why is it so lame?" And I'm like, "Dude, this was state of the art back in the day."
Amen.
Amen. The thing about Yang is he probably would do better in the general election than he may do in the primary. But obviously you need to get through the primary to get to the general. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. I mean, he's definitely in spitting distance.
Future. I'm proud to be a investor in his campaign, donor, whatever you want to call it. He's got an amazing future. These jobs are very hard to win. Anybody that thinks otherwise doesn't understand special interests, unions, the complication of dealing with the Israeli-Palestine issue in a place like New York City. You've got crime, homeless people. You've got corporations fleeing the city due to high tax rates. I don't know if you read that stuff about Goldman, but they're going to move their top executives now down to West Palm Beach.
Oh, really?
The taxes, if you're making $10 million a year like those guys, or $15 million, it's $1.5 million savings. Think about what you can do with $1.5 million that you're not giving to the state.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Goldman leadership not in New York. That's weird.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
What I also think, though, is with the right stewardship of the economy here in New York, we could turn that around.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately for Andrew, because he is open to public-private partnerships and he wants to bring companies back, a lot of people interpret that in the primary as like, oh, he's too friendly with business.
Yeah.
And it's, it's like we were talking about before. It's like there's no middle ground. It's crazy.
Even Barack Obama said after the debacle with Amazon, where they went after Amazon and then New York City lost Amazon's presence in Long Island City. Barack Obama said, you can't create the jobs by going after the job seeker, the creators. Can't do it. You gotta help the job seekers by promoting the job creators and helping the job creators live in your ecosystem. So, but they don't care, man. There's a lot of indifference. I have a beautiful restaurant. Someday, hopefully you'll come. I'll take you. It's called the Hunt and Fish Club. It's at 44th between 6th and 7th, or right leading into Times Square. And they decided to take one of those boutique hotels across the street, turn it into a homeless shelter. So now you have to step over human feces and heroin needles to go to Broadway plays on 44th Street or to have dinner at our restaurant. Is that fair to the people inside the restaurant? But de Blasio was hell-bent on making sure that there was a homeless shelter placed on Billionaires Row. So those developers up on Central Park South, they bought that land, they built those towers, they were trying to create economics for themselves, luxury living for people that have made a lot of money. The taxes, there's an abatement there, but eventually they would kick in. But also, if the people are coming and staying in their apartments and they're well-to-do, they'll spend a lot of money in that city. Consumption, plays, restaurants, Tiffany's, etc. But no, de Blasio wants to put a homeless shelter right next to them. Okay, well, they should have a homeless shelter there, Anthony. The rich should experience how the poor live, and they need to be right up against each other. Do they, though? Do they? I wonder about that, because it does not necessarily helping. And if anything, it's steering people away from tourist destinations like Broadway, etc. When I've talked to Eric Adams and I've talked to Andrew Yang, I say the same thing to both of these guys. I say, hey, the heartbeat of that city is Times Square. You got to fix Times Square. Now, my number one choice is Andrew Yang. He doesn't win. I hope it is Eric Adams, because I think these other choices would be an unmitigated disaster. It'd be like Bill de Blasio term 3 and 4, So
I don't mind McGuire. What do you think? Have you seen
Ray? I love Ray. The problem with Ray is he hasn't caught on because Andrew's an entertainer. Remember, these are marketing competitions. Eric Garcia, that's an entertainer. Andrew's an entertainer. He has the pizzazz and swag to get the television lights to turn on and the camera, and people are taking a microphone and putting it in his face. And he'll have the ability to articulate it.
Yeah.
Ray McGuire would be a great administrator. Ray McGuire has a gift as an executive and a great corporate leader.
Yeah.
And I've known Ray a long time, and I would love to see Ray be the mayor. But you gotta win the popularity contest first. Remember, this isn't a job selection based upon criteria, and we hired a search firm. You and I are on the board of New York City. We've hired this search firm, and now we're going to select who we think is the right person. This is a popularity contest right out of high school.
Yeah.
It's never going to be right.
What's your, one of the things that came up that has been kind of controversial with Andrew was a few weeks ago, he made a statement very strongly condemning the Hamas kind of missile attacks and saying that he stood in solidarity with the people of Israel.
And he got in trouble with the Palestinians, and the Jews are running an apartheid state. And certain people asked them not to come to the neighborhood. And that's the most vexing dilemma, right? Because there's special interests. So what I love about Andrew, he's a right or wrong kind of a guy. He's not a left or right kind of a guy. He's like, okay, what's right or wrong? What's the right or wrong thing to do? And so, unfortunately, that alienates a lot of people. Say whatever you want about Barack Obama, he was incredibly disciplined verbally. He was like the Nadia Comaneci of verbal. He was on that balance beam all day, and he was doing his very best not to say anything too incendiary. Yeah, it's even a word, incendiary, to cause a fire related to his rhetoric. And you have to do that to get elected. It's, people say, oh yeah, we want the truth. No. Remember A Few Good Men? Tom
Can't handle the
Cruise
truth.
can't handle the truth. You say you want the truth, you can't handle the truth.
Speaking of Obama, he's been popping up more on YouTube and stuff. He seems to be coming out of his shell.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've been watching those interviews and I'm like, this guy is such a precise and articulate communicator.
Yes.
And he thinks in paragraphs, and amazing contrast to the previous president we had, right? Yeah.
Wrote a great book.
Yeah.
He's very thoughtful. He is,
nuanced.
From a policy perspective, he drove a lot of great policy. There were certain things I didn't agree with. I didn't think we had to go that crazy in terms of the regulation of businesses. It seemed like him and his administration had a general distrust for business. And yeah, there are bad actors, there are bad players in our industry and in our lives. But, by and large, most people in our industry are doing the right thing, I think.
Let me ask you this. I know we're running short on time. We've probably got about 5 more minutes. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts. I know you're into crypto.
Yes.
What about climate and green energy? What's your businessman's take on that?
Related to crypto or more generally the climate?
More generally climate.
More generally. Well, listen, I'm believe in the science. I'm not one of these science deniers. I think we have a carbon issue. We're emitting too much carbon. It's changing the environment. It's going to hurt the planet and its very fragile ecosystem. I said once in a speech prior to the pandemic that it's like we're living in a frat house and we're lighting up the bong and we're fluming beer and we're expecting our children and grandchildren to live in the frat house on Sunday morning when all the lampshades have been broken. There's beer bottles on the floor and vomit and bong water. Is that what we want for our kids? And what I can't figure out is that we have the intellectual prowess, the capability, and the power to make a massive transformation. Why are we not doing it? And the short answer is big oil. Now, if you get a big oil lobbyist on here, they'll yell at me and say, that's totally not true. We work on conservation and this, that, and the other thing. But the truth of the matter is that's totally true. Okay.
Yeah.
And as long as you have the interests of the big oil, natural gas industry, they're all tied together into the system that we're using now, that system is going to stay in place. And it's hurtful.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is a small part of it. It's 0.13% of all carbon emissions. So people make, I think, too big of a stink over it. Moreover, if we're right about Bitcoin and it starts to be part of the bulwark of decentralized finance, think of the millions of people that go to their Chase local bank and cash their checks or talk to their teller. Or you pick the bank, Bank America, Community Bank. And the notion that we could have a peer-to-peer financial system where we could do away with that, well, that's green. It's not anything other than green. And so, but Bitcoin is moving towards non-carbon based energies that are renewables. And I think it's here to stay. And I'm very bullish on it.
I can't let you go without talking about inflation.
Yes.
There was a period where people were saying, oh, this generation doesn't even know what inflation is. And it's like kind of a thing of the past. It seems like has the chicken come home to roost? Like, what's going on? What's your take?
Remember, inflation was never you weren't getting rampant deflation over the last 20 years, primarily because of the technological growth, the Netscape browser, all of these things that we did on the web, the just-in-time logistics, the automation of manufacturing that would reduce labor costs. So we were getting this deflationary pressure as a result of our prosperity and our innovation. So that scares the Fed because you can't have deflation. Tom, you have deflation, you wipe out the society. Because just imagine my wages are going down because goods and services, the prices of them go down, but I'm sitting on $200,000 of debt. Let's say my wages get cut in half, born from deflation. I now have to pay the dollars I borrowed back with money that's worth more than the ones I borrowed. That's almost impossible to do. That's why the central banks are so concerned when they see deflation. But lo and behold, we printed trillions and trillions of dollars, 469 billion this year alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I think it's crazy. I'm super worried about it. And I think things like Bitcoin that are more scarce, as they mature, I think it will end up as a pretty interesting store of value. Your team wants me to tell people where to find me. So that's at Scaramucci on Instagram and Twitter, although I'm mostly on Twitter because I am afraid of Instagram because I know I'm like an addict that would be like on Instagram all day and night. So I try to be less on Instagram, but you can find me in both places. Twitter at Scaramucci, Instagram at Scaramucci.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a great podcast. You guys are inventing the future, and I want to live long enough to be a part of it.
Anthony, it is always a pleasure to have you back in the Nerd Zone. I hope you'll be a guest again in the future. I know you're super busy.
Anytime, TomOfThePeople.us. Anytime, my man.
And thank you for supporting Yang. Hopefully, he makes it all the way, and we'll have a conversation with him.
Don't rule him out. Yeah, there's a lot of time left here. God bless.
All right, take care, buddy. See ya. Goodbye, nerds.